Okay, I had a customer ask to draw cabinet parts in VCarve to send to the Yeti SmartBench. He subscribes to a cut list package for cabinet software already, but does not like how much they're charging to go to CNC. Well, I've worked with a lot of the software packages that are specific to cabinet making, and the links to go to CNC are very powerful and strong. They work great in most cases, but this question is how would we do it without that? So this is a good example of what a customer could do to get going if he's turning uh, out more jobs and is going to try to work his way into buying a bigger package. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with a frameless cabinet. It could be face frame, frameless, doesn't matter. I'm just going to visualize something I'm doing in my head. Cutting a 49/97 sheet, 3/4 inch thick. We'll play with this thickness when we get to cutting the parts. This particular customer was interested in just butt construction, staple and screws. So it's just a simple frameless box is how he's doing it. So we're going to, these are our defaults for our material. We'll tell it okay. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the parts at a part level here. And then when I need to pull those parts into a job, I'm just going to copy and paste them onto the material and then nest them. I'm just putting them here. I'm going to copy and paste them here to make it easy to see how many parts I'm going to be working with in the mix. If I have a job that's going to have 15 or 20 cabinets, I don't want to nest all those parts together because I have to cut all 20 cabinets before I can necessarily have all the parts for cabinet number one. So I like to nest in small batches and maybe throw 2 or 3 cabinets into the nest, have them nest. I can get them off the table, and then I can immediately start assembling cabinets right away because I have all the parts for that carcass right there. I also don't put parts on the nest that may not be needed because they from the CNC end of it. Because say an adjustable shelf, it has no machining to be done to it. We're just cutting the size. So if I'm going to take parts like that, I can take them out of my scrap of a nest that has fewer parts, say only 2 cabinets. It's not going to have the yield that a nest that has 15 or 20 cabinets has, because they can do a better job packing and mixing the parts. So if I can take the scrap off the table and then come back and recut on a track saw or table saw or whatever, the parts that have no machining on them, that may give me something to do and keep up with the CNC part of it. So we're going to draw a simple base end panel, and I'm going to do a frameless end panel. So it's going to be, say, 24 wide, 30.5 tall. I'm going to do it as if it's a detached object, or I'll do it the other way. I'll do a 34.5. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to draw a rectangle from the bottom left, 0, 0, and it's I can either do it as a frameless cabinet with no toe kick or one with one. I'll do a 34.5. Sorry, 24, 34.5. I want the corner type to be square. That pops that there. I'll do toe kick notch 3/4. Hit this and hit the right button. Go to node mode, and then I'm going to come here and I'm going to cut the vector, and up here, hit the right button and cut that vector. So I've broken that into that rectangle for the toe kick notch into 2 vectors, this part and this part. So this part I'm going to start snipping out. I don't need it. So I say flip, flip, and it's gone. And so I still have to join now this part of the toe kick with the other, but it joined automatically. So we're good. That's one click. Um, this guy does, he's interested in just butt construction, staples, and screws. So I'm going to bring in a bunch of indexing lines so, to help me line up some things. I'm going to drop this down to here. And then for grins, I'm going to do 2 stretchers, front and back, with a rabbet for the back panel. So I'm going to hit this and I'm going to say I want to do one, I want to drop one that's relative to this, a negative 0.375. I'm going to have it drop it down below this. And that'll be the line that I'll use to mark where I'm going to put my holes. And if I know my hole locations, I can think of them. I can just drop them in here, indexing from the bottom corner. But this is a way to do it visually. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to come down and drop this here. I'm going to hit the right button and do relative to that line. I want to go to the positive 375. And that'll be my guideline. I want to do a guideline that's 1 inch in, so I'll come in from the side. I'm going to drop this here, hit the right button, and then I'm going to come in relative to that guide. I'm going to come in 1 inch, and then I'll put the guide there. I'll come to the back of the cabinet, and I'll come in 3/8 of an inch, or how thick you want to do your back, how much you want to allow for that rabbet. Relative to that, I'm going to come in and say 0.375. Should have been a -375. And this was the one I did by mistake, so I'm going to delete it. I don't need it. Okay. So I can, at this point, I'm going to come in and do a circle. And that circle is going to be, I know the number, but it's 5 millimeters divided by 25.4 equal, and it'll do the math. And it's going to create it. I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to do an array. And I could do this multiple times, but I'm going to do an array. And I say, okay, take that one, and I want to do one row with 2 columns, and I want them to be gapped by 1 inch in the X direction, nothing in the Y direction. And that can be 1 inch, it could be 1.5 inches. It's whatever size you do your spacing. This is going to be my rabbit for the back. So I'm going to come in from this line 1 inch, be a -1 in the XY coordinate plane. I can see it there. And I'll put the same size circle right there. And I could put another indexing line, but I just do it as an array. And the array is going to be 1, and I'm going to go -1 inch this time. Okay, so there's my stretchers front, my 2 stretchers for the top. At the bottom, I'm just going to do an array. Start here at the 1 inch in, and I'll do an array every 6 inches, 12 inches. It doesn't matter. It's the idea, the concept here is what we're looking for. Say 1 row, I'm going to say 4 columns, and I want it to be every 6 inches, 5 inches. I'm already in a bit, and I'm going to lose it at the back side too. So there's that much, so let's do a little bit bigger spacing. So it's going to be an array copy. And I'm going to take this one, highlight it. I'll do it every 7 inches. That looks good. Okay, so there's my basic box. And so I want to do shelf holes. Say I would like to come up from the bottom of my panel for 12 inches. I can say I want to do it here. And in the X value, I can place it where I want it. I want to be up a certain amount. But I'm going to come with an X value of 13 inches in and 12 inches up. So there's the first one. I'm going to take this one, do an array copy. So I can do it with the guidelines or not. So I can take this one and say I want to do an array copy. And I want to have 5 rows and 2 columns with the Y offset, say 1.25 inches. It could be 32 millimeters. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter what the space is. You can do the CNC machine to do it. The gap between here and here to be, say, 7 inches. So that's one way of doing it without using these indexing lines. So if that's the way you like your cabinet, I also want to do a 6-inch opening. So I need to have the center line of here be relative to this with a -6 inches. And then I'm going to take these. It's just the, here we go. I can do those as an array as well. Or I could set them separately so that if I want to, and that's what I'm going to do. If I did them as an array, I can do it. But if I need to change the opening for this top drawer later, or this top stretcher, it's going to mess with the other one. So what I would do is just do it back to put the circle in, and I'm going to go here and then do an array related to this one, which is related to where the stretcher is going to be. So to me, that's a pretty easy way to draw a basic cabinet box. I'll turn off the guidelines, and that's a simple box. If I wanted to do door hardware and stuff like that, I could do that too. Or if I'm going to do that on a separate dedicated machine, a grass machine, the boom that does drilling operations, I don't need to do them on the CNC machine. Again, we get to play with how we're going to do things. So I do want to put, not sure what I did here. Let's do that. Then we need to wrap the back of the cabinet. We can just draw it. We can come in and disregard these numbers and drag from here to there, and then I can double click on it and drag it to adjust the size. But you have to play, what you have to think of is that line that we're working with here. Now, say I did it to here. That's going to be to the top if the center line of the 3/4 inch material is starting here, center line's here, so the top of here. But you have to think about it. We're using a circular bit, so we need to have this dragged down just a bit further than the where the back would drop in if I was slotting. So I just keep things simple and bring it all the way down, and then we can adjust the size of our back material, because that's not going to be cut necessarily on the CNC machine. We want the same thing here because we want the round bit to come all the way out of the material and all the way in, so we don't have a round area created by the round bit. So we just need to be out that much. So that will work there. Turn off the indexing, and that should be our basic cabinet. So I'm going to, it's a good time to save it, file save, and we're just going to call this, I have a directory already started, cabinet parts for nesting. So I'll call this base left. I'll call it instructions, screws, because I'm drilling the screw holes. How's this look like that? With token. Yeah, if we were to draw with no token, I just would have this area over here and just square cut these, and I would do them either like levelers or a ladder rack. Get into how you're going to do it. So once I have that, I can capture it and I can mirror one. And sorry, I'm on rotate. And I can mirror it and flip it horizontally, but create a mirrored copy and flip about the center, so it'll come close to putting two on a sheet. I mean, it does physically do it, but I have to move it because I don't ever want to rely on this factory edge. I want to cut that with the CNC machine. But again, that's a great starting point for a basic cabinet. And then what I do is I would put it off to the side. Again, we're setting up our base cabinet template here. And then I would put in a rectangle to be the base of the cabinet. So I'm going to make this 24 inches wide. And say I would do, basically, I usually do somewhat modular cabinets, 30, 33, 36, that kind of thing. And then I customize them as needed. So I'll say this is going to be, this is the bottom of the cabinet that we're going to work with now. So it's on a 30-inch base. It'd be 28.5 inches wide. So this, I'll do the height is 28.5. So that's fine. And then we're going to create another one that's going to be 3 inches for our stretcher. I'll move that out of the way. I highlight it, just drag it out of the way. And I'm going to need another one of these, Control C, Control V, and drag it out of the way. Just using the arrow keys. That's 1, 2. I need another one, Control C, Control V, drag it out of the way. So if we take these now, tighten this back up a little bit. And you'll see why in a second. And then we need to do an adjustable shelf. And again, I don't remember how wide I necessarily did that. So let's just say it's going to be a 12-inch wide shelf. It's going to be 12 by, instead of 28 and a half, it's going to be 28 and an eighth. I'm disregarding edge banding right now. And again, I'm just trying to keep it simple to show the process. So we'll create that. And then this is the adjustable shelf. What I do is I separate this out a little bit. So I need to remember that this is not the same size. And I'll show you why in a bit. So that's for a text. And I'll do a single line here. And this will be a 30-inch base. And then I'll do the same thing for a 36-inch base. I'll do a rectangle. And I'll make it 24. 36 minus an inch and a half. And we'll do the stretchers. 3. Bang. Control C, Control V. Space just a little bit. Control C, Control V. Space just a little bit. Grab them and put them all home. Get close. And use my alignment tools. I'm going to take that. Hold down the Shift key. So I've selected group selected these, and they will be lining up with the top of this second part that I selected, which is that. And then I'll draw another rectangle, which would be my adjustable shelf. And I'm going to go 12 inches by 33 and a quarter. And I'll take that and just use the arrow keys and bring it down. Eyeball it so it's close. Hold down the Shift key and line it up at the top of that one. Again, just to keep things organized. And I'll go text. And that's a 36-inch base. And you put in as many of these as you want, and then you save it again. So file save. So this is a generic base. It's not a left anymore because I've mirrored it. So it's butt construction screws with hooking. And so I could call this double doors. Again, how you want to get into your naming conventions and how you want to do this is up to you. But once I have this, I want to be able to put this in and mix and match different numbers of cabinets into a nest. So I'm going to come in, and once I've completed all of this, I'm ready to put these into views into a job. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab this, I do Control C, Control V, because that's my template. Everything on the left of the material is my template. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it onto close to the material. And I drop it there. So I'm going to put in one 30-inch base. This is the other associated parts that go with it. This is assuming I'm cutting all the parts. These parts have no machining. I'm just cutting them. There's a reason why I may pull some of these parts out and cut them out of the waste. We'll see that later. So that's one cabinet. Let's say that's a base with 30. And so I'm going to do the same thing, Control C, Control V. Slide it over here. Again, doesn't matter. One thing we do want to do before we do all this is take all this and highlight it and hit the right button and group it together so that if I drag these things out, it'll all stay associated. Be one touch and all those machinings will come out at the same time. So I should have grouped those first. So I'm going to take these and delete them. That way, if I touch any part of this end panel, this right end panel, everything gets highlighted, which is what I want. So I want to get both of these, Control C, Control V, copy into the clipboard, and then Control V would be pasting it. And there it is. I'll do Control C, Control V, drop another one above it. We're going to nest a 30-inch base. So there's end panels. There's the horizontal parts. Here's a 36-inch. Control C, Control V. Wrong thing. So I'm going to edit, undo that. I'm going to grab all these. Control C to copy, Control V to paste them. we are. And then if I want to nest this job, just these two cabinets, I just highlight them all. Put the act. And zoom out, grab these as well by holding down the shift key and go to the nesting operation. And I'm going to use an 8mm bit, so an 8mm pressure spiral, which again is 8 divided by 25.4 equal. And I like to leave a half-inch gap and I'll leave 3/4 inch around the border so I can square it. I'm going to remove the original parts and replace them with the parts in the nest. We'll play with these settings. And I just need one of each of the parts because I've already set up the array, the nesting array. If I just dragged one of each of this right and left in, I could say I need two of these base panels, two lefts and two rights, because they are individuals. And that would, but to me, I drag one for every cabinet. I get the ends and then I get the sides. I get the ends and then the horizontals. I get the ends and then the horizontals. It's just the way I think. So we'll preview this. And it's going to show me my nest. Now again, we get to play with whether we're nesting along the X or the Y axis. So this is packing it along the Y-axis height, and that's fine. That's my off-ball. Well, if I use this to cut bottoms and adjustable shelves out of it, but I have it cut my stretchers, or I can do it the other way around and have it cut the bottoms and horizontal parts, not leave my stretchers out of, because I can pre-rip those on the table saw or track saw, and then just cross-cut them on a miter saw. So it depends on how you want to do it. So this is nesting along Y. So let's do nesting along X and see what it does. So backed it up and did it this way. Okay, well, that's pretty good too. And that's, again, using all of my parts. But then if I look at my second sheet, because there's not a whole bunch of mix of small parts, this is my waste. But I've told it that I need to have my parts away from the edge of my material by 3/4 of an inch, so that I don't have to worry about a bad corner, from the strap marks and things like that, a damaged panel. So I am going to be left with some waste here, but again, I can mix and match upper cabinets and lower cabinets because I can combine them into this nest and how I want to put them. The key to me is that I want all the parts for a particular box to come off the table as quick in a time frame as they can, rather than having to wait and sort parts and stack and sort parts and mix and match and then get all the parts. So if I put a base and an upper cabinet together onto a nest, and then I'm working, all my bases are numbered 1 through 10, my uppers are numbered, 11 through 20. That makes it very easy to get good yield out of this and to start stacking up sides that have machining on it here on the waist of the panels. But that's all the base cabinet parts for a base cabinet. If you want to do your doors here, a lot of guys order the doors out. They don't have them coming in on the cut list. Depending on how you're doing it, you may or may not want the Yeti to do the machining for the door hardware locations and the drawer hardware, for the drawer side mounts, things like that. Again, it's up to you and how you want the machine to do its processes. It's going to do whatever we tell it. If we do a little pet mark here in our drawings where the hardware locations are, I can slap the hardware on when it's still laid down on the table rather than assembling it after it's into a box. That makes it easier if I have the space to do that. So it's all in the workflow that you have in your shop. At this point, we save the job. So I can go to File, Save, and I would name this the Smith job at 1 and 2, because it's already nested as 3 sheets. Then we're going to go over to the toolpathing side. And if I've done these with layer names on them, I can have it automatically toolpath based on what the layer name was. So once I save this initially, I could have selected these shelf holes and call them shelf holes. And these are construction holes or line boring or whatever, however you want to name your different operations. And then when you bring it over here, it can automatically do toolpathing based on those layers. But this is the entire manual way that the customer wanted to see this. So I'm going to do the drilling operations. And I'm going to say I want to do 3/8 of an inch deep, so 0.375. And I'm going to do a 5mm rack point drill. I'm going to select the operations that I'm going to get it, holding down the shift key, And what's going to happen is that this is still we'll see that this is still all one piece. If I select this part, that's one part. If I select this is all the operations are still there. So I need to ungroup this. This is something I do all the time. I don't think about it. So I just take it while I'm in the, have that whole part selected. Anything that has multiple machine operations, I want to say ungroup it down to the grouped layer. And then when I do the drilling operations, I can select just those, and you can see it highlighted, just those drilling operations. So I've got that. I should also have done this on the right button and ungroup to the group layer. And so now when I want to do my machining operations for drilling, I just can grab them all, and they're all highlighted. And this is drill, shelf, holes, line boring, whatever you want to call it. And I put my 5mm brad. I often put my tool in it so that you can see the tooling operation, the tool name at the same time, and if we reset and review the visible, there we are. So that's the drilling there, and so I'm going to come in and look at the rest of it. So then now I want to drill, while I have that bit in there, I'm going to also do it to drill through the material. So I'm going to do 0.75, my nominal size, plus 0.030, 30 thousandths equals, it's the same brad point, or I may change it out to a piercing bit. Again, it depends on you and your materials and how you can do it. If you do an applied finish end, well, it doesn't matter if it blows out the bottom side a little bit. If you don't do applied finish ends, well, then it does. You've got to watch for that. So it's all based on your instruction methods. I'm holding down the shift key, and I can deselect. I'm going to unselect these. And I'm not sure why they came in selected. I guess because I had a drilling operation already done. But that'll get these, this. There's no machining on the bottoms and stretchers or adjustable shelves and stretchers. So this will be drill through 5mm drill, brad drill. And again, I'd name it so that I can tell if I need to make a tool change or not. And it's warning us, hey, it's going to cut through the material. That's okay. We know we're going to go into this full board. And so now I'm going to review that. And it's done it very quickly. I can slow down the speeds, but again, we don't care about this yet. And so now I'm going to do the perimeter cutouts of these parts. I would basically come around and grab that part, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and come from left to right. Catch all these perimeters as well. That one, and that one. And I'm going to do the same depth. It's going to go all the way through, but I'm not going to use, it already pre-selected because this is what I had said prior. We're using an 8mm compression bit, so I've got an 8mm compression bit in my setup. I'm going to use it real quick. And I'm going to be outside the lines, and I am going to do a separate last pass of 10 or 15 thousandths. And depends on the material, whether I want to use the same direction or opposite. I want to ramp into it, to the cuts. 1 inch is fine. I'll just profile cutouts, 8mm compression. And it's going to warn us that it's cutting through the material, and it is. And so then we're going to preview that line. And we have it cut out. Now, we're going to want to do tabs so these things don't fall and they don't move after we're cutting them. There's all kinds of different ways to do that. If we're going to do tabs, we're going to go back into that toolpath, double clicking on it, and I'm going to add tabs to it. And I'll say this is 1/2 inch wide, 125, that's find a 3D tab. And I'll just do them by hand. So I go to edit tabs. You can have it add the tabs in, but it may not put them in the most convenient location. So what I do is I just zoom in and I place the tabs myself. I know that this material is attached to my indexing jig here at the bottom. So I'm going to put in a tab here, come right across and grab it. So that'll tab between those two parts. That tab will go all the way across. Some people use, I've got customers that do polymer nails. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you can work with this. I tend to cut my tabs in the center of the part so that if there's a lot of debris on the table, I can just quickly grab it, know about where I'm going to cut it. With the oscillating tool, cut the tab out. If I want to move a tab, You just grab it, go on top of it while you're in tab mode, and drag it to wherever you'd like by holding down the left button. Click on it again on the tab that's already placed. It will move it. So there we are. Real quick, there's a bunch of tabs in there. The other way to do it is to set it up and play with, so that'll calculate, it warns us it's going to cut through. I'm going to reset the preview and then preview that again. And we'll see the tabs in there. Now, the other way to do it would be to do an onion skin. So double click on this, and I can edit the passes. So I can say, okay, let's do this maybe in 4 passes, but I want to leave 10 thousandths of an inch or 15 thousandths of an inch on the bottom pass. So I want to set the last pass thickness plus my 30 thousandths. So say I'm going 30 thousandths into it. That's 0.030 plus another 20 thousandths, 0.020, whatever. I mean, you can put it whatever you want. That's 50 thousandths. Well, let's just say I'm going to go 0.707, 70, sorry, 0.07. So that's going to be my onion skin. And once we do that, when we apply that, it's showing us that's first pass, second pass, third pass. And then many, 3, set it. Okay, so it's going to come down 0.35, do a pass, come to 0.7, and then it's going to have the 70 thousandths. So this last pass, it's really not going to be touching much material on the bottom. But I've also got it coming in 15 thousandths on the side, clean up the witness lines that can be created depending on the material that it's creating from the first pass and the second pass. So it's real simple. This is the setup that you use. If you want to, you don't worry about your time and you can do it in 3 passes plus the onion skin, that's fine. We can set that onion skin to whatever we want and let it go. If we do this, we don't need tabs. If we do tabs, we don't need this. It's all up to you. The compression spiral is going to have some up shear, some down shear. My up shear is going to be 3/16, so I'm okay here. My first pass has to be thicker than 3/16, but I can set that. I can set that here to be, 0.28 for whatever reason, and have it apply, and it will do the math to figure out the other ones, but still leave me a 70 thousandths pass on the bottom because that's what I want. So this gets the bottom part of my compression spiral into the material, divides up the cuts, and this leaves enough to have that onion skin that we want to do as our part holding method. So all kinds of different ways to do this. I'm going to just cancel out and use tabs. At that point, we've done the tabs, and we're going to have it calculated again. I didn't change anything because I didn't do the cutting, because I didn't edit the toolpath. And that's it. We're ready to go. So I can send this out to, I can save this to, this is sheet 1. So that's really confusing to me here. This shows sheet 1 is there's nothing in it because that was our basis sheet. So I don't, there's probably a better way to play with this. I just haven't done it yet. So sheet 2 is what we're going to send out. That's this. It's ready to go. Oh, I didn't do the dado or the rabbit. Again, we know how to do a rabbit. It's a pocket, or I can set it up with an 8mm. I can set it up with a pass. So the right-hand side of the bit is going to be as a profile pass and do it in one shot. So again, that's not the issue. So the issue is to see how to draw this, design it, and put it in different sizes. When I save my tool paths, I like to do them this way. So these are my 5mm tools, and I don't like to do the sheet 1, sheet 2 because sheet 1 is actually empty. I look at sheet 1, it's this, it's empty. So I just named them myself, and I'm going to put them together in the nest this way. So I'm going to say, okay, let's grab the tool paths. There's nothing on sheet 1, so let's go to sheet 2. And that's this one. There we go. So I'm going to do my drills with 5mm brad. I'm going to save them. And the way I do it, I would do it this way. I'd save it this way. It's sheet 1-1, my first operation. And it's not just shelf holes. This is shelf holes and construction holes. So I don't care about the operations themselves. I just want the tool in there. So that's sheet 1, first tool, 5mm brad. Turn those off. On the next tool, which was the profile for the path, save that. And that would be sheet 1-2. That's the second operation for me. And I can name it profile cutout or whatever, it doesn't matter. And And again, we would have the rabbit in there for that. There's different ways to do it. I could do it with just a line and have the tool offset from the left to the right, outside, and have it catch it in one pass. Uh, so that's how we do it. That stuff is there. Then I would send it to the machine using either Yeti's Smart Manager or FileZilla, and it'll be at the machine before I can get up out of the chair. And this will be all the operations that we're doing. Reset it. Reset the view. We'll take this around a little bit. A little bit so we can see it. And we'll preview visible. I'll slow it down a little bit to kind of animate it. Preview all. So the first thing we had to doing was the shelf holes, and it was doing the construction drawing. Bit change, and then we're cutting out the profiles of the part. We told it to do it in multiple passes with a ramp end, and we told it to leave tabs. We discussed how to do the onion skin as well. When you're working with somebody to help you with CNC needs, you need somebody that knows machines and knows your construction methods. They've got to speak your language. If someone is just generic and knows a bit about the software that they may be helping supply, it doesn't do a lot of good if they can't help you with your methods and knowing exactly what you do and why. We've got to be able to talk the same language. So that's very important. So I've been doing this a long time with custom woodworking shops, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm going to speed this up a bit, but we get the idea. Cutting the parts, and again, some of these parts don't have machining on them. They may not need to go to the SmartBench. We may want to have them cut out of the off-fall, which is still good use of panels sometimes. So with the compression spiral, a lot of people would ask me about this. With the compression spiral, on the deeper cuts, it's packing stuff back into these grooves. These parts really don't want to move around much. So by putting the tabs across from each other, it's a solid tab between this piece and this piece, basically, and this piece. They're all connected together with those tabs. So that's a lot of material that's all being packed into this rectangle before it gets to this stretcher. So it works pretty well to hold everything together. It is easy to, if I see because of the gap, I could put it here. But these are harder to clean up. The way I cut them with an oscillating saw, and I take those parts to a belt sander and just zip, 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 just touch it with the belt sander. It's a fixed belt sander, and just move the parts right past them, and they're very quick. So I like to have them on the long edges rather than the short edges. But again, you just have to play with what's going to be your best setup for your material in your shop. So that's a very involved setup. One of the next questions people will have is, well, hey, what happens when I have a custom cabinet? Well, that's not a problem. If I were to take the same end panel, but this was going to be say it's a 31.5 inch box carcass. Well, I can come back to that and do that too. So I'm going to go back to the design size. And it'd be the same. If we go back to it, it'd be the same. I'd want this added to it, Control C, Control V, put it over here. And then I can take this, and rather than a 30-inch base, it's going to be a 31.5-inch base. So I'll take these parts, Control C, Control V, move them over. And these parts now need to be 31.5 inches on the size of this part, or it doesn't matter what they're going to be. So it's going to be custom. These are the horizontal parts, and we add 1.5 inches to it to get the overall box. So I can quickly come over here and say, set the selected object size, and make it, just say 29 inches. So this would be a 30.5-inch box. So this is going to be the height now of these parts. Now you see that I didn't grab the adjustable shelf. And the reason for that is it's a 1/4 inch smaller in the way I set this one up than this 29-inch height. So I've got that in there, and then I grab my adjustable shelf and do Control C, Control V to copy paste, put it anywhere I want because it's going to be nesting independently. When I tell it to go, highlight it, and we want this height to be, as we said, 29 inches. So this is, I think the number, I guess 28.75, whatever the other prior size was, and we can measure it. Let's cancel out. I'm sorry, I just don't even remember. So I'm going to say, let's measure here. I'm going to go to here, and place it here. That was 29, so this is 28.75. That's what I had. So I'm going to take this box, this adjustable shelf, and resize it to 28.75. Apply it, and it's done. Measure it. Ding, ding. We will place it 28.75. That's based on the decimal places that we did. So let's do it again. I had set it 1 decimal point. So we're going to set it 2. Right. That one. So there we have it. Now I can nest these with those dimensions on there because that's the way I think sometimes. I haven't cleared everything. I know what I've adjusted it, so I can take these and nest it with these. This will just nest that one cabinet. There's a custom cabinet. It took no time at all to redo it. So there we are. Very quick. Um, and that's what a nest of one cabinet looks like. And again, half of this panel is not being used because uh, these are parts that that's a nest of a custom cabinet, just resized on the fly. I don't have to resize the horizontal parts. If I need to do the other parts, I can do those as well. But I need to check with my orientation of the stretchers and the opening sizes and things like that. That's fine. It's more common that we're adjusting widths in a lot of this. And so I would draw this as a base cabinet, base end panel standard, drawer over door. That's what I did. 2 drawer, 3 drawer, 4 drawer, and you add pullouts, accessories and things like that. If I'm going to do location holes for the screws, a lot of information, but that's how we do it. That's how I do it. Other people do it different ways, but that's the beauty of the software. It's got to think the way you do. So that's it. Ready to go out to the machine. Thanks for watching. Again, when you work with people on machines, you're also having to work with them on software. They have to understand what you do, and if they don't, you may be working with the wrong dealer. Let's make sure that you work with people that are able to help you. It makes them successful machines so much better. Thanks for listening.